Namaskaram, Vanakkam to all the PGurus audience. As I always maintain, it's a pleasure to interact with the PGurus audience because they are very perceptive, erudite, and make observations. Interestingly, last time some people have observed that I have not had a vibhuti on my forehead, except it's might not have been visible. It's not the regular chalk piece type of white vibhuti, but this is more of a what one can call 𝙒𝙗𝙬 out of homam vibhuti. Anyhow, that's a minor point. Today we will have a look at this Roe and Wade, the major decision of the US Supreme Court and its ramification, and does it have any implication for India? First and foremost is US sort of crude type of abortions allowed in the early part of the 18th century, 19th century. They were, and later on it was felt by the purists and some of the others that no, it should not be allowed. There was also a concern that recently freed blacks population might outweigh that of the whites in case because by and large the well-to-do and middle class whites will go for abortion and all these various type of issues. Anyhow, very interestingly, the Roe case came up. It was the late 60s actually. She actually her original name is Norma McCoy. For the purposes of the case, she was put as Jane Roe in order to protect her privacy and other thing. And she had already delivered 2 kids, and one of them she has donated. And the third one she wanted to go for abortion. And of course, the Texas laws are very strict, and it was not possible for her. Then she approached the Sarah Biddington and Linda Coffey, these lawyers, who asked her to sign affidavit. They were looking for a good candidate. She was a street woman, as she herself calls. And then, so it was filed, and then it took, Wade is of course the Texas representative, Attorney General, and he supposed to represent the Texas state. It went through various stages, and finally in the Supreme Court in the early 70s, it was became a very major case, and then it was, the outcome was that the US women were given the right to abortion. And it was enshrined as a right and recognized actually. So that was the case. But very interestingly, she herself, Jane Roe, later in 2003 filed an affidavit telling that she didn't know anything at that time in the late 60s. And in a sense, she sort of told the lawyers have made a sort of used her. And later she seems to have even participated in anti-abortion rallies and other things. Be that as it may, she was one of those who claims that she didn't know anything about it, but her name was used. It's similar to our Sabarimala case, where the women who have never been to Kerala, the judges who do not know anything about Sabarimala, they all sat together and decided something to as a reform. Anyhow, that particular case got overturned recently, couple of days before by the Supreme Court in a majority decision. It was expected quite some time before. There was a leakage of a document about the possibility of getting overturned. So what has happened is the abortion is not a federal issue anymore, nor is it considered as a basic right of a woman. This came out of another case of Mississippi, and a lot of nitty-gritties are there. But basically, the position today is individual states have to decide how many more time to be taken, whether to allow it or not. So basically, the whole US society is in turmoil, if you ask me very bluntly. And there are going to be states which are going to be completely strict in terms of no abortion at all type of thing. Particularly some of the Bible Belt states and other thing are going to be. And there are going to be states which are going to be more liberal, like California or New York. And The issues are very simple. The states have to decide when the life starts. This is a very, very complicated and highly debated. Not at does it start at the time of conception? Does it start after a couple of weeks? Or so if you ask for instance, the church, the Roman Catholic Church people, they will say it is at the time of conception only. There is nothing more or nothing less than that, computed from the last menstruation period, last time, and then and if you ask some of the most what one can call pro-choice people, as they call themselves, those who are fighting for abortion, they would say no, it's not the way to look at it. It's a women's right to decide regarding our own reproduction. It's not anybody else to suggest. So it can take place anytime even in the second trimester. Broadly the carrying of the pregnancy is in terms of 3 trimesters. First trimester is expected to run between 12 to 14 weeks, and then again another 12 to 13 weeks, and then last trimester. Basically, it is in the form of 39 to 40 weeks. So that is the first question. When does life start? The second is, assuming that you are in for abortion, when would you like it to happen? Is there a ceiling time? For instance, in India, earlier, based on the 1971, our medical termination procedure, it used to be for 12 weeks, and then it can go up to 20 weeks provided 2 medical practitioners are involved, etc. Now it is 20 weeks, and then for 24 weeks, 2 medical practitioners have to be involved and consulted, another thing. And that itself, many people are wanting it to be over that 24 weeks. We will come to that. So in the US, what is going to happen is, some states might be more liberal. So people have to travel to those states. There is a travel cost, there is a cost of... and the second issue is, even though the federal funds are not available easily for many of these abortion clinics and other things, state level funds are also very meager. So the funding itself is another issue, and most of the people who might opt for abortion are also relatively very poor people. And the US has got a massive problem. What is the problem? Already 51% of their birth is unwed mothers. It's a very, very severe situation where society is in turmoil. It's a very, very divided society, and this is going to add to the issue. If you are not going to allow the abortion in some of the what you may loosely call the strict states, or then it is going to have far-reaching consequences. And even though the church, Roman Catholic Church as well as other churches are against it, most of the parishioners or common people are not significantly following it. Actually, there is a reduction in abortion, as some studies claim, because of the availability of some of the contraceptive pills and other things, and how much they will be in demand and how much they will be useful is another issue now. So in our context, in Indian context, so US is going to be having a huge prolonged prolonged problem, and along the lines of the Bible Belt states are, and you can't say that all the Republicans are against abortion. It's a mixed situation. Significant number of the what one can call the Bible Belt people belong to Republican. So those who are against abortion are a subset of the Republicans, and you cannot call it Democrat. Significantly more proportion is what you may loosely call in terms of pro-choice, their ability to decide. Interestingly, in all the cases all over the world, the choice is left to the woman, in spite of the fact many of the countries like Germany, India and other thing is talking about married women. So the primary choice is that of the woman, not that of the family. This is one point which we should keep in the back of the mind. So in Indian context, we were, it is under the Criminal Procedure Act, abortion was not allowed And the British and the French, whenever they adopted their thing in the last century, they told it is also applicable to all the colonies. So till around 1960, Shantilal Shah, he was the Northwest Bombay MP. Under him, a study was to be conducted because quite a number of medical practitioners and others were telling a lot of abortions are taking place in a very, what one can call, unhealthy places and not very desirable type of thing, etc. And based on the Shah study, we adopted 1971 this medical termination procedure bill. That time Chandrasekhar, one of the renowned demographer, he was the one who actually piloted it. And most important point is this was done very, very naturally. There was no major road of processions or riots or something. This is what we have to stress about in India. Whether the voting right for women or the abortion right for women is just granted, is just given, and it is accepted. But whether the society as such totally has imbibed this is another issue. Mostly middle class and upper middle class people have gone in for it, and we are having this two-child norm and other thing. And the whole thing was amended in 2020 to the extent earlier it was for a period of 12 weeks, if I remember correctly, one trimester, and between 12 to 20 weeks it was to be discussed by two medical practitioners and accepted. Now it has become up to 20 weeks without one single medical practitioner. The second is earlier it was failure of contraceptive for married women. Now it is also for all, not just for married women. So there is another 20 to 24 weeks you require to have two types of medical thing, and beyond 24 there is a medical board which decide. This is based upon complications and the problems associated with the possible future child's health, etc. Anyhow, the point is, including single woman also in contraceptive failure is a very, very major step which has been taken, and that could have a long-term implications. Already, this live-in relationship and other thing is being propagated by some of the imbeciles or morons or dangerous people in the film world, and in the three worlds are the most dangerous in this: film world, TV world, and the ad world. All the three are populated with people without having any, mostly dysfunctional families and not having any concern about the societal requirement and other thing. For instance, in Tamil film industry, one Kamal Haasan, he is one of those who's treated as an icon for live-in relationship. Basically, these are methods by which families have to be destroyed and the society has to be imperiled. Anyhow, so we have our decision or thing on the based on the. But one implication of that is very interesting. Forecast suggests that already many of the states are less than 2 in terms of the reproductive rate. Forecast suggests by 2000, not very far, 2040-50, large number of states will be 1.4, 1.5 type of situation in reproductive rate. So what is happening is, on one side we have large number of abortion clinics coming up. But the other side we are also having problem, and what one can call fertility clinics are also coming up. So the society is in extraordinary amount of churning is taking place. Already large number of middle class you can find is two child or one child or something, and in that of course demographic distinctions are there. Hindus, Christians, and Parsis of course, as well as Jains and Sikhs are going to be much more affected compared to Islam people. So that is another type of a issue. So we have to have a relook at including unmarried women in terms of contraceptive. What are the implications of it? I hope government releases regularly data regarding this. How many have been aborted, how many are belonging to married, and how many belong to different social classes and other things. That would be very, very useful. That would also provide us. So the question of when life starts is not going to be easily addressed. And when is to be done, in our context it is up to 20 weeks. Is it a fundamental right As of now, we have taken it in India at least as a right for the woman. Who is to decide? We have decided about doctors and single doctor and double doctor. So this is something which we have to be extremely interesting. Even though we are always considered as a backward and developing country, we are much more advanced in terms of, for instance, voting rights. I have always maintained used to be there even in the 1930s in Mysore legislature and other legislature bodies. Similarly, this right to life, it's not based upon any street agitation or demonstration or anything. So this is something which we have to be very clear about it. And we have adopted, of course, a large amount of family planning thing because of the 60s. There was a big thing about countries like India are going to collapse, and the Paul Ehrlich, they all had this global disaster will come due to India and other. Nothing. Norman Borlaug came, and then Green Revolution, and these what Cassandras have always been there at all points of time for India, and it has always so. But we have to now rethink about this whole issue of population control, population policy, and the role of abortion in the whole system of population policy in the light of possible 2040-50 area significant decline in our reproductive rate. There are clear signs that we will have a flat rate of growth in population. Already our population growth rate in many of the states have become flat. Flat means it's not an increasing rate or anything like that. So we must move with the times and study all the ramification of these issues, and also the issues of protecting the family. This is ultimately very important. That's one of the building blocks of our civilization. Let us not throw the baby with the balti. And that's what I would like to stress. And thank you for your patient hearing.